Good morning. It's Friday, 9 o'clock a.m. In the Pacific time zone, November 3rd, 2023. And I have audio confirmation, and this is Windows Daily Helpline 322. Hang on a moment. And unmute confirmed. For those of you who have been aware of this, that sine waves hiss in the background should not be present. Can you give me a confirmation of that, please? Then I'm going to go into Martin Hogg. Let's see. Let me see if I got this right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get back on my right game about blurring people's email addresses. I think he's already said it's okay, but yeah, I've got his email address blurred out there. I didn't do a show yesterday, and I had received a communication from Martin, so I sent back an email response to him. But here's what he sent to me on November 1st. Hi, Doug. I really appreciate your help on this. I've had a couple other thoughts. Oops, I'm going to look over on this screen and see if Martin's in chat. I don't see him. First, I will make a backup clone to another drive just in case. Second, the M.2 drive was brand new, so it had to be initialized and given a drive letter. I think he's saying that in response to my prior comment about cleaning the drive and then reinitializing it. And it's because you're going to do the clean procedure that you would have to reinitialize it. So I know it was already initialized and given a drive letter. We want to get away from that, wipe that out, start over. Third, would it be possible to simply delete the boot partition on the old drive and assign the letter C to the M.2 drive? No, I don't believe that would work, and I think that would cause you extra grief. I have not tested it, so I'm not certain about that. He's saying using command. Certainly, you can't delete the boot partition on the old drive while you're booted on that old drive. But we'll get more on this topic in a little bit here. Fourth, in BIOS, would changing the boot order to make M.2 number 1, would that work? And the answer to that is no, and I explained that in my reply to him. So he's already seen my reply. I'm going to move this email up a bit and then give my reply. Or show my reply. Oops, I forgot to mute. This is, I sent this picture back to Martin. This is the screenshot he gave us originally of his, the drive that is built into the computer, the 58 gigabyte drive. And this EFI partition is the one that I believe to be our culprit, because when he cloned his 58 gigabyte drive to the new 1 terabyte drive, he cloned the entire thing, including that EFI partition. And that is causing trouble because there are now 2 EFI partitions competing for the attention of the BIOS. And I don't believe changing the boot order would fix that. It's possible that it would, but I think that's a little bit risky direction to go. Last time I talked through this, nobody really gave more opinions in chat. So it'll be interesting to see if we get some confirmation or rebuttals about my opinion on this. But here's the rest of the email that I sent to him. Since I won't be streaming tomorrow, that was yesterday. Yesterday is tomorrow. Tomorrow is yesterday. That sounds like it could be a song. Backup clone to another drive or as an image file to an external is a good idea, just in case. Having more resources to be able to recover is always a good idea. If you use the disk part clean command on the M.2, then it will need to be reinitialized or initialized again. The drive needs to be cleaned to remove the BCD data. And I'm calling it BCD. I'm referring to this EFI partition. I believe what it stores there is the boot configuration data. And there's people in our community here that knows this stuff off the top of their head better than I do. I don't have to work with it on a daily basis, so it's always been kind of little vague in my mind. Deleting the partition, the boot partition on the old drive will not work because it is not the C:boot drive that is the problem. It's the hidden partition that contains the BCD info. Again, I'm pointing back to this guy. Changing the boot order in BIOS will not likely help. Even if it works, I think it's risky because there will still be two competing editions of BCD data. Because if you have the 1 terabyte drive and it has a clone image of the original EFI partition, I believe what it has in the BCD is configuration information that points to those drives using a device ID or some other kind of ID that is not something that we think of as C drive or the first drive or anything along those lines. So I think the way that that information is stored there is far more specific. GUID, global unique identifier, Ran Israel puts into chat. BIOS cleanup could be an option. I don't think so. I'm not sure what you mean by a BIOS cleanup, Alice. We're moving on here. The culprit is the 260 megabyte EFI partition. So I'm trying to draw his attention to this partition here. It says, I am boss. Look at me. Look at me, Mom. Look at me, Dad. I will tell you where to boot. I think in your previous attempt, the data in the EFI tells the computer the ID of the C drive, which exists on 2 drives. The same drive ID exists on both because you cloned them. Does that? I don't think the GUID goes with it because that's a global unique identifier. I don't think that gets copied over. Let's turn my picture-in-picture off, shall we? We don't need the Doug. I think in your previous attempt, the data in the EFI tells the computer the ID of the C drive, which exists on 2 drives, and the poor sucker is confused and doesn't know what to do. You are only supposed to have that on 1 drive in the computer. When you are booted on the SanDisk drive, which is the 1 terabyte drive, you can install a fresh bootable Windows 10 on the M.2, and the current EFI partition will then understand that drive. Then you can restore the original C drive from an image file to the M.2. Then use msconfig to identify which operating system you want to be the default. And I talked through this in the Tuesday live stream. So what I'm saying here is get this 1 terabyte clean. Go to DOS command prompt. I'm going to go demonstrate this stuff. I think Martin Hogg knows how to do this already, but let's just go review it for the benefit of whoever's interested. And then type disk part, enter. That gets you into a disk part prompt. And then we're waiting for that to load. It still hasn't loaded yet. And wait, oh, that is a prompt. Why is it not? Why is it? Oh, there it is. Disk part. Okay, so then list disk, and then you'll have your disk 1 is probably going to be the 1 terabyte. So then you say select disk 1, and I know you can just type select DIS. And then you can, if you want to confirm it, you can do list vol and see what volumes are on that partition. And as long as this disk is selected, then your next thing to do would be to use the clean command. I don't remember what parameters. Do we need any parameters? I think, unless it is able to be disabled, I think you're going to have a problem. As Doug is describing, the boot sector is confusing the machine. I don't see a problem with booting from the built-in memory and then using additional storage. I don't understand what you're saying there, Londog. But the clean command, I think it's just clean. Isn't it just clean? I'm not going to do it, obviously. To totally wipe out that disk. And then in disk management, you'll have to reinitialize that, which is just a couple of clicks, 1 or 2 clicks. And then go to the Windows Media Creator and actually install Windows operating system on that drive. And when you do that, your EFI partition is going to know about that bootable partition on a separate disk. And since you can't remove your original drive anyway, just leave it as being the EFI partition forever. And then in msconfig, you can go to boot, and you should then see two bootable partitions. Click on your second one and click second set as default, so that when you restart the computer, it will boot on the new C drive that you have on that drive. Now, I like doing this one step at a time. So, meaning, so far, I don't think you've been able to even see or access the 1 terabyte while you're booted on the C drive, except this picture you sent us makes it look like you do. You can see it. Yeah, maybe you were able to see it once you got booted somehow. Not quite sure where that picture came from, but now that doesn't accomplish your end result, desired end result yet. So the next step would be to go back into whatever backup software you're using. I think you're using Macro and Reflect, and do a restore only of the C drive to the 1 terabyte drive. Don't restore the entire cloned image. Don't clone to the 1 terabyte drive. Just restore the C drive. I'm pretty sure that's going to work for you. But as you mentioned, Martin, have image backups. Now, you said you were going to make an extra clone to another drive. That's fine if that's the way you choose to do it. Okay, so those are my thoughts. And let's see what, if you're ripping me apart in chat, over my opinion. Let's go catch up with chat. Scroll down and see if nope, Martin's not here. I'll look at the orange things briefly and see if there's something I want to hit first. Nope, they're all general hellos and stuff. So we start with Alice saying hello, everyone, and Ken Stout saying hello. Both Alice and Ken were watching the Fortnite this morning. Sin Vicious, hello. Greg M., this has been a week of battles. It's hard to tell whether I'm winning or losing. Oh, best wishes. My best hopes are with you. I think Greg was having some health issues. Brian Lightfoot gave us a formula here. He says, if you think the answer is 1, if you think the answer is 1, then press 1. If you think the answer is 9, press 9. I put a 9. I don't know. Has he given us his response yet? Hello, is Chris Garrett. Some YouTube pages, the About tab does not show when using Google Chrome, but it shows with Edge. Chris, my immediate thought when you said that was, I have had things like that. Now, here's Chris Garrett. He's talking about the About tab here. On Ken's channel, the About tab is here. I have seen situations where the About and the magnifying glass for search is off the right edge, and it looks like they're not present at all. So I'm suggesting, Chris, when you see that happen, number one, take a screenshot, send it to me, because I'd like to see the picture. But also come up into the 3-dot menu up here and see if you're zoomed in. If so, then zoom out. Even if you're at 100% zoom, go ahead and zoom out further and see if the About tab becomes available to you. That is my only idea on that subject. Ran Israel says 9. James Disher, good morning to you. He says, good morning, everyone. Subtle, but it's there. Ran, let's see, what is Ran referring to? 9. Subtle, but it's, the background noise. Yeah, my spectrum analyzer is showing very, very low. So it'd be very, very quiet if it's there. Rick Lakes, good morning. Zavi Manor says 9. William Dawson, hello from Florida. John Williams, good morning. Speedy C. Oh, I guess that's a good time for me to say, if you're trying to type in chat and you're new to the channel, I've had to tighten up restrictions. So the way to get authorized for chat is to send me, well, you could send me an email, tell me your YouTube channel name, and I will go check on your channel. If it was just created recently, I will not approve it. If it's been around for a while, then I will approve it to be able to talk into chat. That does not make you moderator. That just gives you the ability to type in chat. And when you put a comment on any of my videos, it will be held for review and it won't be published until I approve it. Currently, see, I check this tab every day on stream. So your comments would show up over here, held for review. If you're requesting to be an authorized user in a comment on a video, it would show up here. Doesn't matter what video you use. Muting for a moment. Unmuted, confirmed. Speedy, hello. Speedy was also watching in Fortnite this morning. Lawn Dog says, Doug, it just occurred to me this 32 gigabyte that is built into the machine is tied to the BIOS to be the boot drive most likely. Any further installation of storage media will be additional storage. Chris Garrett, I think I missed what the problem is. I'm supposing he wasn't watching when I started talking about Martin Hogg. You can go back and watch it. I'm not going to describe it. We've talked about it before. Londog, I don't think using additional storage area will make it a boot drive. It certainly would cause a problem with the 32 gigabyte built into the machine and controlled by BIOS. In MS config, you can choose which drive you want to be the default boot. Doesn't matter what order they're shown in BIOS. Doesn't matter what order they're stored in the computer, what connections they are. Yeah, BIOS cleanup, I don't know what that is. Gwid from Rand Israel. Greg M, is the aim to replace the eMMC drive altogether or add additional storage? He wants to boot. He wants the new storage drive to be the bootable drive. You cannot replace the eMMC because it's built onto the motherboard, soldered onto the motherboard. You cannot replace it. But he does want to boot to the 1 terabyte drive rather than the eMMC. And that can be done. The new drive can have a restored image from the original C drive and just use msconfig to tell what to boot from. Now, the reason why I'm saying he should install a fresh copy of Windows on that drive first is just to prove that that drive will work. And once you've got that fresh image installed on the 1 terabyte, you can use msconfig to tell the computer to boot on that drive. The reason now why that step is significant is because when you reboot the computer, it will be easy to tell that you're booted on the 1 terabyte because it'll be a fresh Windows 10 installation. When you do the restore of the C drive to that 1 terabyte drive, it's not quite so easy to tell that you are booted on that drive because it has the same C drive image as the eMMC drive. You can figure it out. It's not all that hard to do, but it's just more clear and obvious if you get the computer booted on the fresh Windows 10 installation. Richard Rogers, hello. Londog, doesn't this machine have soldered in storage media for the boot drive made by the manufacturer? Yes, the eMMC is soldered in and allows an update using a socket for further storage. Alice meant reset BIOS. Yeah, I don't think that's going to solve his issue at all, because resetting the BIOS does not change the boot configuration data that's in that EFI partition in the eMMC drive that's soldered onto the motherboard. I think I said that right. Greg to Londog, yeah, I think it was mentioned the eMMC is soldered in. Glad you brought up the proper terminology, that's soldered on storage. So the BIOS in that machine is designed to boot to the eMMC memory. No. The BIOS in that machine can boot to whatever. Well, it's going to look to the EFI partition on the eMMC memory. That's not booting. Whatever information is in that EFI partition tells BIOS which partition to boot on. And that setting is controlled, apparently, I deduce, msconfig makes a modification to the information in the EFI partition, which tells the computer which bootable C drive on which physical drive to boot from. Now, it's not actually the C drive until the computer boots, because if you set it up in a way that you could multi-boot, choose which one you want to boot to, whichever one you boot to, that one's going to contain the C drive for that session, because the C drive is just a logical partition. and it's dynamic. It gets identified when the operating system boots on that bootable partition that's on either one of those drives. Whichever one it actually boots on is the C: drive for that session. Richard Rogers, hello. Now, if you're gonna refute any things I'm saying, it's really helpful in chat if you use your words. I disagree with such and such, and type what I said. If you say, no, that's not right, I don't know what you're referring to. Lawn Dog, unless it is able to be disabled, I think you're going to have a problem. I disagree. As Doug is describing about the boot sectors confusing the machine, all I got to do is tell it which one to use. I don't see a problem with booting from built-in memory than using additional storage. Well, the problem with it is the built-in memory is probably slower. So if you and because a lot of programs install their stuff on the C drive, so there's a limited amount of space in that 50 some odd gigabyte drive, and Windows updates alone makes it difficult. When you get a cumulative update, or when you get an update that takes you from 22H2 to 23H2, well, that's not going to happen with Windows 10. But anyway, that type of an update, it needs a lot of extra space to accomplish that. eMMC memory, Doug, you know what that is. Belated greetings all, Selden Ball. I'm not sure what your point you're making here. eMMC memory, Doug, do you know what that is? I don't know a lot of the technicalities about it. I can't even tell you what the letters stand for. And I'm not too interested. Selden Ball, WRT disk part. Make absolutely certain you have the correct disk selected. I cleaned the wrong one recently and still recovering that. Yeah. The advantage for Martin is the size differential between these two. That 54 gigabyte drive is so small compared to his 1 terabyte drive. But absolutely, you got to make sure you've got the correct one selected. Excuse me. Greg M. Yep, Selden Ball. Always do list disk after selecting to make sure beside the right drive. Now, actually, when he does the clean, what he could do is he could take that 1 terabyte M.2 out of that computer, and I think he has an external drive, a USB connector. So he could connect that to his other computer and use that to do the clean operation. Be a little bit safer that way. Hang on. Okay, unmute confirmed. Always do a list disk after selecting to make sure it's the right asterisk beside the right drive. At 912, scroll back up to 912, it can scroll. I might be talking about when the About tab is not visible. There may be a scroll bar down at the bottom that you could scroll to the right. And Chris says, okay. Yeah, so apparently that's when I was talking about that. Gary Weisenberger, PEMDAS, left to right. PEMDAS. Yeah, Gary, I'm writing it down. No, writing that backwards doesn't clarify left to right what that is. I don't know. Left to right. I don't know. You're over my head there. I don't know if that's a humor or what. Oh, is he talking about the first bootable internal? Windows finds the first bootable. I can punch over to this one. Window find the first bootable internal drive that makes it C drive and boot drive. In new computers, you can set the boot manager in BIOS. I've done that when I clone from Gen 4. So let me go through these in order and see if anyone refutes my msconfig explanation, because I don't think I've tested to prove it. Dennis, my Ryzen 5 still causing graphics crashes with new season of Fortnite, reverted driver, no help. Fortnite needs to recompile the executables with a fix. Ouch. Well, Dennis, did you use your bot controller on your computer that does not have the problem? Is that how you got me able to play with your bot controller? I know a lot of you don't know what I was just talking about there. Don't worry, you don't care. Let's see. Hellos between the peoples. 9:15. Scroll back up to that. Ran Israel. If I wasn't using headphones, I wouldn't hear that background hiss. Seldon Ball, my problem was that I had two discs with exactly the same. Now, let me say something else there. I actually have my graphics fan. Now, for those who don't know, when I say graphics fan, I'm talking about that fan that's installed in the wall that takes the warm air that comes out of the computer and sends it into my laundry room. That's what I call my graphics fan. It's turned off right now. So usually that extra background noise is a suspect for causing that background hiss, but it's off right now because it's kind of cool in the house today. That was a reminder to show Ken Stout's link for his show this morning if he's got one, because I'll do a redirect to Carrie Holzman's Friday show, which I had not set up yet. So let's go do that right now. That's why I have alarms, because otherwise I forget to do stuff. There he is. Today at 1 p.m. my time. Now, back to chat. Seldon Ball, my problem was that I had two disks with exactly the same capacity and partitioning. I should have unplugged it so only one disk was connected. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Seldon was saying, be careful, you got the right one. And I said it's the size difference that helps, and he had two with the same size. That does make it risky. If you always have image backups, then you have a recovery method. With Acronis, you can clean the disk and clone without any partition or disk management. Certainly, well, you can do that with Macrim Reflect too. You could clean the disk with Macrim Reflect. And that's probably a safer place to do it. So, Gary, it's not only Acronis. That doesn't make Acronis better than Macrim. Honestly, I don't care which one people use. They're tools. They do pretty close to the same thing. Here, the formula. The answer could be 1 or it could be 9 if you strictly follow PEMDAS. Oh, that's what PEMDAS, what Gary was saying. Then you multiply before divide and end up with an answer of 1. If you go left to right, you will get 9. I don't know. The parentheses are the highest priority thing there. If you strictly follow PEMDAS, which was left to right, order of operations, things that are in parentheses go before left to right. You have to evaluate the stuff in parentheses first. By my understanding, I'm not aware of any allowance to go left to right and ignore the parentheses. Then you multiply before divide and end up with an answer of 1. If you go left to right, you will get 9. Well, I thought the answer was, I thought division and multiplication are on the same level. So when division or multiplication, left to right, whichever one comes first, has to be performed first. If you're saying that you can multiply before divide, I don't think that's true. That would mean you take the 3 here, multiply 2 times 3, that's 6. So then you get 6 divided by 6, and there's where you get the 1. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the thing. But now I was thinking that this was going to be a trick question, and he was going to say I was wrong. Was it Brian that asked the question? Yeah, it was Brian. I was thinking he was gonna it was gonna be a trick question, and no matter whether you choose 1 or 9, it was gonna be wrong. Then I was gonna come back to him and say, no, I was right. You didn't ask what is the answer to that math problem. You ask, what do I think? So I said 9, and no matter what you came back with, I was going to be correct, because what you asked, your request, was if you think the answer is 9, press 9. I knew absolutely that I thought the answer was 9. I put 9. No question about it. I was right. I was absolutely right in what I thought. So there. I hate systems with the eMMC. They're such a ripoff. Well, they're cheap. That's usually the thing. They're cheap. I agree. Change the boot order in Windows. What happens if you unsolder the eMMC? I don't know. I think you'll have a broken computer. I don't know. Could it be possible to correctly remove the eMMC and have a correctly configured bootable M.2 drive that has the correctly designed EFI partition? And I think the answer to that is, will the BIOS of that manufacturer's BIOS, that manufacturer's implementation of BIOS, whether it's legacy or UEFI, right? Yeah, UEFI, EU, I don't know. Move along, Doug. All right. I think it would be possible that the BIOS might be designed that it requires to see it before it would look at any other drives. I don't know. I'm not aware of a rule that multiplication comes before division. Yeah, me too. I think it's between multiplication and division, it's strictly left to right. Send it to electronics repair school guy. He does things like unsoldering. That would be interesting to see if he has experimented with that. PEMDAS, the M is before the D. Multiplication, division. Oh, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Oh, interesting. See, I've never heard of this. So, parentheses, exponent. Yeah, that makes sense. If you have an operation within parentheses and you have an exponent, you have to resolve the parentheses first, then the exponent, and then left to right. If there's the division that occurs before multiplication, this order of operations would say do multiplication first, then division. I was not aware that this is a thing in mathematics. Gary O'Brien Lightfoot, PEMDAS is an acronym. Multiplication, division, AS are equal left to right is the only correct way in math, is an acronym. M/D and A/S are equal left to right. Okay, so that's saying, I think what he's saying there is that if you had division occurring in your formula before multiplication, he's saying they are equal left to right. So it doesn't matter what order they come in. If you have division first, then you do division first, I think is what he's saying there, which means my understanding of order of operations is correct. I know right now Ken Stout has these glared headlights in the deer in the headlights. I don't know how to say that right. Look on his face. Order of operations? What does that mean? Ran Israel. P is greater than E. Yeah. Parentheses before exponent. And they are greater than multiplication and division, but you take whichever comes first, left to right. And they are greater than or done before addition and subtraction, but they are performed left to right. Embedded multimedia card, EMMC, multimedia card. See, when somebody uses the term multimedia, the industry uses the term, not RAND, multimedia card, I think of video and audio, multiple media, but a storage device, I think of that as storage. You can't take an eMMC, hold it up to your eye and take a picture with it. You can't speak into it and get it to record audio. So how do we call it a multimedia card? And that eMMC is not an eMMC and a M.2 and a SD. It's only a single piece of media. It does not have multiple personalities like Doug's do. It's not a multiple media. It is a single media. MMC is what came before SD. The E means it's embedded and not removable. Again, MMC, multimedia card. It's a single media. It's not multiple media. You can't put it into just any old slot. Perhaps, but the M and D can have different priority over one another. Really? What is this? PEMDAS rule explained. Where in here does it say they can have different priority? That looks like a lot of stuff there. I'm overtime. The multiplication and division can have different priority over one another. What, priority? No. What can I search there to get to the area where you say that they can have different priority? How far behind am I? 9:23, 20 minutes behind. After I made the above statement about built-in storage on the eMMC, yes, installing programs will eventually fill up, so there's a disadvantage. Hopefully, changing in Windows, the boot order, as you suggest, will solve the problem. Brian, be sure to scroll down to the sub-rules for PEMDAS. Sub-rules. Can I search for sub-rules? No. Subtraction rules. A few important sub-rules that must be followed. Operations are performed left to right. Sub-rules. Do I have to read through multiple paragraphs to know what you're referring to? Can you make it a little bit easier on me? MD, next after the parentheses, groups are spelled perform, multiply, divide, left to right, based on whichever operation is first. Just because M comes before the D in PEMDAS doesn't mean well, that sounds like it's confirming what I was saying. Be sure to scroll down to the sub-rules for PEMDAS. Important sub-rules. These are sub-rules. Extremely important. Just because A comes before S, well, that's saying it. That's confirming what I was saying. I don't know why you're advising me to go look at that. Or maybe it's just because I was saying I was unfamiliar with the acronym PEMDAS. And you're letting me know that, yes, it's built into the PEMDAS rule about left to right still applies for multiplication division, and it applies for addition and subtraction. I guess that's what you're saying. Windows finds the first bootable internal drive, makes it drive C and boot drive. In new computers, you can set the boot manager and BIOS, and I've done that when I cloned from Gen 4 to Gen 5. I don't think he's contradicting my statement about using msconfig, but I'm way behind in chat. If you want to ignore the order operation, instead of 6 divided by 2 times 3, use 6 times 0.5 times 3. I'm not going to go through that now. I'm going to skip through the rest of the math. Using Ryzen has NVIDIA card. We need a little discussion about what booting to sector 0 is all about. Not today. Maybe that's a Saturday topic. Should I make that a topic on Saturday? Tomorrow? Messing with Zoom does not change anything. I will keep an eye. Could be a YouTube thing. Send me pictures. Send me screenshots, Chris. Please, please, please. Don't just keep telling me about it. Send me pictures, screenshots. Yeah. If you look at it, oh, I think I should give up. All right, I'm going to catch the oranges, and then I'll come back later and read those after the stream. Nor do I. Both are good. Is that the math stuff, or is that the boot drive choice? I don't know. Why remove an eMMC? Just clean form? Yeah, I don't see any reason to remove it. I think that's pointless. And let the EFI partition remain on that eMMC drive and just get a boot partition working on your 1 terabyte drive. They're usually too small for a D storage drive. Well, still, there's no reason to remove it. It can sit there forever. You're not losing anything by letting that eMMC sit there. I'm sure it can be unsoldered if done right. Again, no reason to do that. It's not costing you anything to leave it sitting there. Orange. Go to oranges, Doug. When I went to school, I used to keep my sandwich in my book bag for lunch. That didn't turn it into a bread bag. What? When I went to school, I used to keep a sandwich in my book bag for lunch. Oh, I get it. That did not turn it into a bread bag. That's probably in response to something, maybe about using the eMMC for storage. Just because you're not using it to boot your C drive, that doesn't change what it is. I have seen some all-in-ones with disk drives. I was surprised. Oh, that's been all-in-ones existed for quite a long time before SSDs came along. Clone to M.2, then clean eMMC. It will boot to the M.2 if M.2 is bootable. Oh, yes. Okay, that's fair that. That would be a way to do it. Martin Hogg did a clone to his M.2 of the eMMC. Now, if he completely wipes out the eMMC, that will remove the EFI partition. Now, the only EFI partition that exists is on the 1 terabyte drive, and it should boot. Now, I would caution first, have a image backup, rather not do a clone, have an image backup of the eMMC. The reason why I don't want to have a clone is because then how do you do the recovery? You're going to have to clone from your cloned drive to the eMMC, which is going to be a smaller drive than the one that you have that cloned image on. I'd rather have an image file that you restore from, because then you're not going to have any problem with the difference in sizes. That's a good solution. I think that is a better solution than what I was suggesting. And Martin was on the path for that. He cloned to the M.2 and then was unable to, the computer wouldn't boot at all. Poor sucker was confused and didn't know what it was doing. So the one extra step of clean it. Now, how do you clean it? You would have to boot to Macrim Reflect or Acronis from a thumb drive and use that to clean the eMMC. Now, don't have your M.2 in place when you do that, just for safety's sake. I mean, you could, You could do it right. Ran Israel. MMC card were originally used in older phones. Yes, I remember that. To store multimedia content, hence MMC card, and that name just stuck. That's the explanation. Now it's just another type of storage medium, and the MMC name just stuck. It was originally called MMC because the purpose was to store multimedia on it. Good. Image is always a givens, I would think. Yeah, well, Martin was not doing image files. He said in his last email he was going to make another clone as a backup. Boot from Windows, install drive, open command prompt, run diskpart clean MMC. Boot from Windows installation drive, meaning a thumb drive. Yeah. Yeah, that would work. When you get to a certain point along there, you can press, what is it, Shift F10, something like that, to open a command prompt. And do that all. Okay, I'm out of here, people. Thank you for hanging around. Thank you for the chit chat. Tomorrow, Saturday, normal Saturday time. I guess that's enough said. Have a good day. Catch you later. Goodbye.